Hello and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke joined here on a Tuesday with Tom Jacobs. Tom, how are we doing?
Yeah, good. Happy birthday for yesterday, Sky. That's why we're Tuesday show as opposed to Monday this week. Another year older and another year wiser, Sky, which is what we like to hear. Should bring us another DP World Tour winner at least before the end of this run in September and October. So I'm looking forward to that. So I hope you had a great day yesterday and
Yes, thank you.
celebrate again tonight. But I guess steaming into a really good week. I thought we were a bit unfortunate last week. I mean, Matt Wallace was a really good winner. Good to see the emotion from him. I've really changed my mind about Matt Wallace. I used to dislike him, and I just think whatever reason he's become quite likable over the last couple of years. So just seems a little bit more humble. Maybe it was because he came out and won early and often, and maybe got caught up in himself and. Just seems to have humbled him having that kind of 5 years or so without the win. So, like to see that. Great story seeing Beef play so well again. Hanging around all week. Garcia Heredia pushed Wallace all the way, right? So, really good event. And we had some runners. I mean, we had runners all week, and it just couldn't quite pay off with Wallace playing so well in the end.
Yeah, I would say, Norlander and Fitzpatrick probably took years off of my life from there. So we celebrate one and we probably lose a couple, based off of the weekend performance, because it could have easily been a runaway from Wallace, and he brought it back in the mix. I mean, Saturday, that's the most difficult round I can really remember on a non links type of course for the DP World. I mean, the course average was like 4 over that day. There were some nuts rounds going on. So it had the opportunity, if those guys would shot even par, they're in the final group on Sunday and then game on. But unfortunately, yeah, they didn't get there. And I think you're right with Wallace. I think I've always associated him. I mean, guy was rifling through caddies, at one point of his career, and he could be publicly seen kind of verbally getting into arguments or really, asserting his dominance over those guys. And that seemingly has turned down. And it's probably partly because he has been checked back to reality in the game of golf a little bit. So big win, and definitely emotional. His videos in the green room or the room that they have is worth watching. And I do think the story of the weekend, though, was Beef, right? I mean, Beef getting back there and in contention quickly after kind of returning back to pro golf and feeling better about his game and life. So always love rooting for Beef. So excited to see him there too.
Yeah, another one. Look, another person that got caught up in the madness. I've never seen someone rise to popularity quite in the way that Beef did. And I've said it for years that I felt like it was getting too much. He had that Arby's deal right in America. Then he's hanging around with John Daly, which I think is great fun personally, but probably not great for your career. And I just think he just got caught up in it. I just think he wasn't expecting it, wasn't prepared for it. Is by all accounts seems a really genuine person that I think if kind of the same result I imagine I would have if I ever became famous, right? Like I think you just get caught up in it, get really excited. You wouldn't become a horrible person, but you just don't know how to cope with it. And I felt like that's what happened with him, because there's no doubting his golfing ability. I mean, he's brilliant. He's got all the shots. It was good to see him, even though he didn't have his very best stuff over the weekend. It felt like he was in control of his golf ball and playing shots that we saw him at his peak, and at least attempting to kind of grind at it, and had a chance right up until the end. So really good to see him in, and we want to see that kind of storyline from those people. I think the last sort of couple of weeks or so we've seen some really good golfing stories on the DP World Tour, and that's what we need back. I mean, that's what we're going to get again this week, I think, at the Irish Open, and the PGA Tour's back to the kind of events that we want to see as well. So I think we're in for a really good week of golf here with the Irish Open and the Pro-Core Championship, and it's been nearly 10 years now since we saw Royal County Down, and way before we were doing these shows.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, I think it's a little I'm bummed that the PGA Tour is back this week, because we could have had a really good stretch of the DP World Tour. Leading into the President's Cup, it really had all the opportunity to run. Last week, a strong event into Royal County Down, which everyone from a non-professional golf, just from a golf enjoyment standpoint, loves this course. And then into Wentworth, it was really set up to run So unfortunate that we have to compete. We're not going to get the same DraftKings prize pools for the Irish Open that we did. Hopefully they will be back for the Irish or for Wentworth next week.
Yeah.
Being WPGA, that would be nice as a strong field there. But regardless, I mean, the betting odds, we have tons of strong PGA Tour golfers, international golfers that are here. So I think we can transition. I mean, it truly seems like a real links test that we'll get this week. Soren Kelton had won in 2015 when we played here. I mean, Rory, right off the top, he shot 80 in one of the days, right? Only beat two golfers when he had played previously there on that day. And conditions, wind seems like it could play a factor. I never like to bank on anything until basically the night before, a couple hours leading up. I mean, I think I guessed wrong every single day, the wind at the Open Championship. So I'm not banking on weather falling into a certain direction at this time to factor into the cards. But what are your overall thoughts of profile into the week?
I think this is one thing I would say about this Irish Open is very different to what we've seen in the last few years, and a lot of people that tune into the show will know that already. We've seen a lot of kind of non-links or really kind of faux links tests in the Irish Open in recent years, and this will, I think, be right back to the kind of links golf that we want, right back to the kind of Dunhill links on a hard day, the Open Championship, and kind of what we talked about where we haven't really seen a lot of links. You know, we keep talking about these kind of links experts, but they play it like once or twice a year at best. So it's good to have it back here. I do think it's going to be a case of having to have control of your ball everywhere. You are going to have to scramble well because you are going to miss greens. And I think you'll see by my card as we go along here, I want people that have just got that great kind of links pedigree. Yes, I think you can play yourself into it by being in such good form, but I think ultimately I want that combination of a little bit of throwback golf with the links test as well. So I think it's got to go towards the people that know how to play links golf. There will be, first timers, and there will be people that, are just playing too good that will get themselves in the mix. But I think relying on those guys that have played not only just this course, because not barely anyone has, but like the ones that you just know this kind of test. So anyone that played well in the Irish Open 10 years ago and beyond is probably worth looking at as well.
Yeah. Yep. I don't disagree. I mean, if we thought about it from the top, I think it works two ways because Rory has that pedigree. He has, the obviously Irish familiarity with playing this type of golf. Hasn't played much links golf really in his career in a while, but has played arguably some of the best golf of his career at stretches here. 6-1 is the best odds you could get for Rory. Both of us are passing there. And I mean, you said you had, a second look in regards to the odds being pretty decent. What was kind of your reasoning there?
Yeah, I just think that this looks like a number that we see Rory McIlroy out on the PGA Tour when he's playing against Scotty Scheffler, and I know that's because he has to beat Scotty Scheffler, but he's not going to have that same kind of competition this week. Even if Lowry's at his very best, Aaron Rice at his very best, these are people that he's never really priced up anywhere near it, against in the PGA Tour side of things. I know he's a clear favourite here, but I thought he'd be clear. I guess there's an element of he shot 80 in the first round here when he played here last time, but that was a long time ago. He didn't play Wentworth very well the week before either, and that's rare for him. So I did think the price was relatively fair. I'm just not going to take 6-1 or 6.5-1 about a golfer in a links event ever. So it doesn't really matter if it's Rory McIlroy. But I thought for context purposes, as someone that's always saying how short Rory McIlroy is in the market, I actually thought this was fair. And if people were going to play him, I completely understand.
Yeah. I kind of had the feel with Bob McIntyre at the top of the board. I'm okay skipping again just because 18-1 win only on Bob McIntyre scares me in general, just making that selection, how it would affect the rest of my card. But getting up for the Irish Open at a course like this, it just feels like it's a Bob type of environment, a week that he will relish, and obviously does so well in these type of conditions. So that would have been my thought process overall on the board, but each of us are pretty okay with skipping everything here. I think the one that you tweeted about a little bit, I kind of had a discussion with you pre-show, was just thinking through Sebastian Soderberg. Could it be, I mean, his paper alone says that the number is right and he bounced back in a great way last week. I'm confident in seeing it. I'm just not ready to bet 30-1 in this field, but it was good to see Soderberg play well and hopefully get his bearings back under him.
Yeah, I would be tempted to wait until Wentworth when I think you're going to get an even bigger number, and it's probably not an easier event to win, but one that's a little bit more predictable in the sense that if he's playing well, you'd expect him to carry it on there. Whereas I think anything can happen on links, although he has got previous in it. Just to back to Bob for a little bit. I mean, this guy is. I've been one of his biggest critics, right? But he's really found a new level, I think. You know, winning the Canadian Open on the PGA Tour and a tour that he was quite vocal about not really wanting to play, then comes back and wins his Scottish Open, 63, 67 at the weekend there. He's going to have to play PGA Tour again next season, which I think if he's so like determined to kind of, you know, not love and buy into the American Tour, he's going to really kind of, you know, relish these tests and the limited starts that he gets here. So whereas we normally talk about a golfer having spot starts on the PGA Tour and really, you know, trying to take advantage of them, it's almost the opposite with Bob. It's like a reverse of his career. So I was close to him. Like you, I don't really want to play 18-1 win only on Robert McIntyre, but again, didn't think the price was too outlandish. I just got to kind of 30-1 and beyond, and that was where I was happy with.
Yeah, you can move forward with your selection. I mean, Aaron Rye's coming over, Shane Lowry's coming over, same as Seamus Power, Thomas Dietrich, a lot of the DP World Tour type of guys that cross over back and forth, and one that you're landing on here at 30s.
Yes, I think for Ryan Fox is a player that we expect him to play at the top of his game when he comes back to the DP World Tour, right? I mean, you go back to Canadian Open, he was the 36-hole leader there, second after 54 holes, finished 7th in the week that Bob won there. He finished 17th at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. He was 25th at the Open Championship. Obviously, the last time we saw him on Links Golf, and then he was 35th at the Olympics, which was average. Now, his form has been patchy, but his form's been patchy because he's been playing the PGA Tour, right? And I think this is a classic example of when they get back on the DP World Tour where they're comfortable, this type of player is going to play well. We saw it with, you know, Alexander Bjork last week and kind of things like that. And he's a different level to that player at the moment. So I'm pretty confident just on that alone that Ryan Fox should stand out. I mean, he had the 4th at Myrtle Beach on top of the 7th at the Canadian Open to really impress. And when you look back to, you know, last year, he won at Wentworth, the flagship event. He was 2nd at Dunhill Links 2 weeks later, 3rd at the Irish Open the week before. So he's got that massive pedigree of these big events now, these Rolex events and things like that. And when you look at his, you know, Irish Open history, it's absolutely ludicrous, right? He's been inside the top 4 times out of 7. The other 3 times he's missed the cut. So he's either finishes in the top 4 or misses the cut. And those 2 outcomes are both live this week. I'm not going to get away from that. But he lost in a playoff once. Might even been twice he's lost in a playoff in his event, actually, thinking about it. No, he lost to Moronk by 3 strokes last time, then he lost to Russell Knox in the playoff at Ballyeffin. But I just think coming back to this kind of course is perfect for him. He played okay, as I said, in the Open Championship. I'm pretty confident that when he drops down to this level now, he is one of the star players. Seems pretty comfortable playing with Rory, etc. And if he doesn't finish his career with a win at the Irish Open, he's probably going to think this is the one that got away. So all of those reasons and many more, I think Ryan Fox is a good player at 30-1.
Yeah. I of course am settling with starting my card on at Guido at 45s. You know, Guido comes off a top 10 last week, pretty much a backdoor, right? Never found himself on the front page of the leaderboard. But if I just zoomed out on Guido, right? I mean, I think he had the best Open Championship of his career, making the cut, finishing 31st from the wrong side of the wave. I wouldn't consider him by any means like a link specialist. I just think if I zoom out on his golf, and he's obviously an individual that I track more than anybody about kind of his round by round stuff. Sunday was unbelievable with the irons, one of the better rounds he has had in the entire year to vault to the leaderboard. The Olympics, he was inside the top 10 at the halfway point. The British Masters really was just one hole that got away from him. And then, I mean, you just zoom out on the KLM Open was not that long ago. He had led in with a ton of form into there. The Scottish, he missed on the number, which had some very strong chances. So I just think it's been a really, really good summer of golf for Guido. And he is on that cusp of PGA Tour card or not, and has to play really strong to finish out the year to hold it. So I'm not going to run away in a spot where I think his game is clicking.
Yeah, and look, I think we've watched Guido enough, as you obviously alluded to, that we see the shots that he makes, and he just looks that creative guy. I remember watching him in sort of like Dubai and Qatar and stuff, playing some really nice shots. He's obviously that final shot into 18 at the Open de France was amazing, and I just think he has that skill set. Again, he hasn't shown it, as you alluded to, in terms of Link's form, but I think that's okay. I think he's played, his best finish in the Irish Open last year, 16th. He's been 28th at the Scottish Open. I don't think you can have those kind of, results without having some sort of pedigree to you. And whilst he hasn't finished it all off, and he's not the most obvious click in this kind of event, there's enough. And I don't think you even finish fourth in a US Open without having that kind of pedigree where you can, play those types of shots. So I think I'm fine with him just about anywhere. And yeah, I see no reason to jump on.
So for me, the one that in this mid range that I think has some really under the radar links form, and then is also coming over the PGA Tour that I'm super excited to be backing at. What I think is quite a good number is Harry Hall this week. Harry Hall came and played the British Masters, a ho-hum T12, kind of under the radar. Obviously had won that ISCO championship in the playoff recently, but also had I would say a decent summer leading in, 12th at the John Deere Classic, 24th afterwards at the 3M Open. Just spikes in Harry Hall's game, I think, is there, and we saw it come to full fruition for that victory. But what I remember about Harry Hall when he turned pro in 2019, it might have even been as an amateur, I think, actually, or right as he was starting to make his pro career, is a Sunday at the Alfred Dunhill Links. I'm rather confident he might have been paired with Rory. It was a Sunday 65 as, a 20-year-old kid in conditions to finish T15 and basically his pro debut or early on DP World Tour debut. You mentioned he's from Crum. Where is he from?
Cornwall. Yeah.
Cornwall, which is full of links golf. He has a super creative short game, which is probably tested more than ever when conditions get up. And we're thinking about a PGA Tour winner, right? A two-time Korn Ferry Tour winner here at a decent number and a good field. I'm truly excited to be on Harry Hall at 60s.
Yeah. So I spoke to Alex from Bunkered earlier, actually, and he was talking about who I was going to play, and he just said, "Look, I'm going to play Harry Hall because I know he's from Cornwall, and he should be good at links golf, and we haven't seen it yet, but I trust it." And I completely agree with him and yourself. This is a guy that we know has won sort of like European championships, and or played in European championships. He's won Cornwall Amateur Championship in 2014, and we've just never seen what he's like, particularly on links golf, because he's spent all his time in Las Vegas, then the Korn Ferry, then the PGA Tour, right? He's by all accounts American for everything that we see about Harry Hall, really. So getting back to his roots, going back to, obviously you've pointed out in 2019 when he turned professional, or maybe even still an amateur, had that great final round at the Dunhill Links. That's a pretty small sample size, but it's the only evidence we've got. So I'm absolutely fine. He hasn't even played an Open Championship yet, which surprises me considering he's now a winner on the PGA Tour. So yeah, I think this is a player that showed a lot to win his first PGA Tour event. Okay, it was the ISCO as opposed to anything bigger, but we know he's mixed it in other events as well. He's played well at the Shriners, as you'd expect, and things like that, being a Vegas guy. But I think he's got it all. I think he's capable of more. And if you play well on the PGA Tour and win on the PGA Tour, you're capable of winning a DP World Tour event. I think that's the very bottom line. And he did grow up with a lot of links golf. So before he went out to Las Vegas, he would have been playing this every week.
Yep. 100%. I'll go one more before we are both on different guys at the 80s. 75-1. The number stood out to me on Laurie Cantor, winner of the European Open earlier this year, kind of gotten over the hump when it comes to victories on the DP World Tour. In my mind, also on the fringe PGA Tour card, has to have a big, strong end of the season to pretty much become the first live player to then get on the PGA Tour, right, for Laurie Cantor. But the thing that stood out to me, now he's got a long list of probably unsuccessful links tests as a DP World Tour member. However, if I look through his previous or his last basically 3 attempts, I think you would be shocked if you said that he topped 25 back-to-back Open Championships. T25 this past year at Troon, T17 the year before when Harmon won the Open Championship, has not missed a cut in his last 4 Open Championships, and then in 2023 had his best career finish, the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, with a 14th. So that more turns the knob, I think, as he's matured as a player to potentially playing better at this style of golf. And I think the number is really good at for probably a top 10 at least player on the DP World Tour only right now.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I didn't necessarily see it before you talked about it, but I do. We've been on Cancer a couple of times now on the show, and just a player that's been out of mind for a lot of people until he come back and won in Germany, right? And there's people taking people to adjust. And I think it's really important you say that, we don't think he's particularly good links golfer, because that's what the evidence suggests, other than this recent run of form. And so, back-to-back top 25s in the Open Championship is no joke. I mean, you'll come onto a player in a minute that's, back-to-back top 10s, but like it's a really incredible, feat. And, considering how hard Open Championships can be, the best of times. And then when you come back to the fact that he's finished 14th in this event in the past, albeit it was probably a fairly easier golf course than this, but also just a tough golf course player, I think. And he's going to be great tee to green. That's going to help. So I'm here to say that the Cancer thing makes a lot of sense at 75 to 1.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for it. I mean, I think he can be a very, very good player. And he's 34 now. So
yeah.
He feels younger in my head, but I think might be best golf he's played in his life right now, for hopefully a stretch of time to be able to capitalize.
Yeah, and
over to you.
This guy, also just before we move on there, he will be motivated to get that PGA Tour card. And look, the stories we're reading today, Tiger Woods and this live kind of PGA Tour merge are probably going to happen at some point. So maybe that side story goes away, but it would be really, sort of almost gratifying that's not the right word I'm looking for, but it will be, really important to him to have made the jump to live, successfully integrated back onto the DP World Tour, and then had the opportunity to get to the PGA Tour, which he's never been to before. Wiesberg is on the same sort of track, right? Come back off live, got to the PGA Tour, potentially if he plays well again. So, I think he'll just be, proud of himself for doing that. Whether people, appreciate that or not is entirely up to them. But as a player and just looking at it objectively, it's really impressive. Moving on to my 80 to 1 pick. So Matt Kuchar, spot starts on the PGA Tour. I think there's still some life left in him. And I think this is a very similar approach on the DP World Tour with Joost Luiten, who showed last year that he's still ready to win, probably should have won last year. And he's now showing that kind of form again. He's in really solid form, isn't he? Some people will say not spectacular, but certainly, showing up, and especially the last sort of 3 events, 23rd the Czech Masters, 18th at the British Masters, 6th at the European Masters. That adds to the 15th that he had at the KLM not so long ago as well. And this is probably the most suitable event for him. I mean, that's the main thing. He's just been brilliant at this event as a whole. Again, there are some times where it's been kind of, a little bit scrappy, but I think everyone that's played the Irish Open enough times has struggled enough. And, he was 9th in his Irish Open debut. He's been a runner-up. He's been the 5th world leader and then finished runner-up. He's been 11th. He's been 12th. All different golf courses for Joost Luiten. The runner-up came to Paul Casey at Carlton House way back in 2013. And it's that longevity. And look, there's not many players. We've got the kind of, Rory McIlroys and people like that. There's not many players that have won more times on the DP World Tour than Joost Luiten. And yes, it's not been since 2018. But you look at his career, and not even just the events he's won. He's won the Wales Open. He's, obviously an eye-catching performance. But it's the players that he's beat. Where you think about kind of, open pedigree players as well. Thomas Bjorn he's beaten. Tommy Fleetwood and Shane Lowry in the same week in Wales. Bernd Wiesberger. Chris Wood is a player that plays really well in links golf. So he beats those types of players, regularly earlier on in his career. And yeah, I just think with what he's shown on the Irish Open, he didn't play here in 2015, which is a surprise considering how many times he has played. But he's played some really good stuff in, other sort of links golf as well. 4th in the Scottish Open. I think he's been 14th in the Dunhill Links, 9th in the Dunhill Links, actually. So, it's really impressive. And it might be too late in his career for him to win something as big as this, but I'm willing to take a chance with the current run of form.
Got the motivating factor, still stick it to the Dutch Olympic Committee that didn't let him get into the Olympics, which was sad for him and Van Driel. Yeah, just crazy. For me, 80s. I said it last week on the show. If I'm associating golfers with links golf, to me it's still Matthew Jordan rising above anybody. And he just does that time and time again in these spots. I mean, back-to-back top tens at the Open Championship for him. I believe it was the exact same year, 2019, when Hall had his finish. Jordan found himself in the mix for a T5 that year. That was also the same year. I think the British Masters was won by Kinholt. I don't remember which course. It was, I'm blanking. But it was
In Liverpool, was it right?
Hillside. It was Hillside
Yeah.
that year, which was more linksy than what they typically play, right? At the British Masters, or more to me than the Belfry is,
Yeah.
right? So I remember him getting in the mix there, and then that kind of set down the path in the Challenge Tour, and then obviously the Open Championships in back-to-back years, in which he has done. And I mean, he's had a decent year, right? I mean, he's popped here and there. I think 4 top 5s for him so far this year. A couple of their top 20s, was good in the Scottish Open. I think it's been a better year for him. Still has some work to do if he wanted to get up to the list of PGA Tour card. I don't think that's as realistic unless it's a win here. But I'm just not going to set up at the linksiest course we have seen on the DP World Tour in this event and not be Betty Matthew Jordan personally.
A player that's just made delighted this is moving to a true links test. Like 3 starts in the Irish Open, 12th, 24th, miscut, but they're 3 courses that are not like this one. And he will just enjoy when everyone else struggles and gets upset. He will come to the fore. It's as simple as that. And we might be getting carried away with him being the best links golfer in the field, but he's not going to be far away from that in terms of recent starts, right? And I completely get it. The form, I guess, is a little bit concerning since the Open Championship, but that's why you're getting 80 as opposed to probably 40 or 50 where he would have been if he'd just had some mediocre results.
Yep. 100%. So triple digits for the rest of us. I'll make sure to give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix. If you support Mayo Media Network, goes a long way for us. Those guys are crushing it so far in NFL season with the content. So we appreciate the love as it's kind of our Super Bowl of the DP World Tour coming up into the stretch of golf right now for us. So support goes a long way on like, reviews, subscribe, comment. We see them all, and we were super appreciative of the impact you guys make on us and the support you give us. So thank you for that. Tom, you can go next, which I think your next golfer was probably the one pre-Jordan to me that if I said links golf, this is who I thought of. Yeah, I think, is this who you're going with next?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Eddie Pepperell was a player that has been brilliant over the years in these types of tests. And another one like Ryan Fox, he's either played brilliant at this event or he's missed the cut. He was 22nd on debut, then missed the cut. 2nd and 8th, missed the cut. 4th, and then 3 missed cuts. The 3 missed cuts in recent years I'm not too concerned about. It's not the true links test that we've seen in the past number of years. When he played this course, he lost in a playoff in 2015. So that's obviously a huge factor in why we like him. He loses to Soren Kjeldsen there, as did Bernd Wiesberger. But he's just, he's peppered these courses, right? For lack of a better word. As you mentioned, the British Masters, in the past has been a little bit more kind of links friendly. He won that. I think that was Walden Heath that he'd won. So that's impressive. He's been 2nd at the Scottish Open. As I said, he's been 2nd here, 6th at the Open Championship. Qatar always brings out some link specialists. He's won that and finished 4th there, 4th again at the Scottish Open. It goes on and on. All these kind of likely results that you like about Eddie Pepperell, 7th at the Dunhill Links, they continue. He's just found something. And I don't think he's all the way back, but it feels a little bit like Beef in the sense that they've both had their kind of struggles. Pepperell's is more on the course issues with the driver as opposed to Beef's, which is certainly just more between the ears. But with Pepperell, 23rd at the Czech Masters, 42nd at the Danish Golf Championship, but he was actually 2nd going into the weekend, 39th last week, but he was 8th going into the weekend. There's been sort of 2 or 3 rounds each event where Eddie Pepperell's looked decent. And I think now he's coming onto a course where he can, take it to the next step. And the last 3 times where he's made the cut, 23rd, 14th, and 15th in strokes gained approach. So the ball striking's coming. The course is perfect for him. We know that because he, lost in the playoff here when it was last held here 9 years ago. And he will relish just being in a little bit more of a buoyant mood, coming back to a course that he loves. And if it gets tough, that'll only suit him, I think. So happy with Eddie Pepperell at 125.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a good one. I like it a lot, and Lynx was Eddie for as long as I remember. So hopefully can turn back the clock a little bit. I sticking under the theme of kind of the under the radar Open Championships performances. I'm not sure how many people off the top of their head would be remembering that Joe Dean finished tied for 25th at the Open Championship, his second one that he's ever played. And the first one was all the way back in 2017 when he played in it. Joe Dean's had a heck of a year. He's one of those stories from qualifying school that gets through and now takes advantage. I mean, he is in the race to Dubai 30th. So not that far out of realistically getting himself into some big time events and also maybe the PGA Tour if he is to finish really, really strong. And he's done that by virtue of, I believe, 11 starts. He wasn't getting into events. I believe his KLM Open or Sudal Open when he was in the mix. Or no, it was Kenya. It was Kenya early on in the year when he finished second. He needed to go find places to play because it didn't guarantee always that he was getting into events. So Joe Dean won the European Amateur as that must have been 2017. That might have been how he earned his spot start in the Open Championship. But you could search back and see some Lynx success for him as an AM, and then just basically had fallen off of golf and gotten back into his way here. And I think that type of profile and story with the season at 125 to 1 is what I'm looking for in a long shot.
Yeah, I think it's the English amateur at All Woodley.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he beat Alfie Plant 9-7 in the final, and Alfie Plant was a silver medalist in the Open Championship. To give you some context as to what that means for kind of linked stuff. So look, he's just been brilliant. Like to your point, the guy was driving for a local supermarket delivery for most of the year, and that's what he's been doing. So he couldn't travel around the globe to play, and all of a sudden he's a runner-up a couple of times, losing the playoffs at Guido is, we will enjoy, but by the same token, deny potentially a really good story. And look, this is a guy that's only 30 years old. He's only turned professional 8 years ago now, and it's not quite worked out for him. But this year he's shown why he was always capable of turning pro all those years ago, and he's been fantastic for the game of golf, and he will enjoy this type of test. I believe so. The 25th of the Open Championship, as you went, just goes under the radar and just another bow in an already fantastic season. So excited to see what another Links test brings up for him.
Yeah, and he was T4 after the first round there. In the other person that fit that bill, I'm not on him, but Daniel Brown, obviously played
Yeah.
awesome at the Open Championship. He's 200s, won in Ireland last year. I mean, he just hasn't shown anything after the Open, so I didn't end up landing there, but he fit that similar profile. For me, I think your last golfer 150s here. Tom, do you want to round out your last one?
Yeah, Richie Ramsey for me as a player. I do like Ramsey. I've actually interviewed him. For anyone that has not listened to that, I interviewed him on the podcast a few years ago now, probably during COVID. But a really nice guy, really thoughtful about the game of golf. Is a couple of times wanting to give up, but he's got 4 top tens in the Irish Open: 2nd, 4th, 9th, and 10th. That's already a huge indicator of what he can do. The 10th came at this golf course. That's always important. The 2nd came behind John Rahm. John Rahm by 6 strokes, so not necessarily had a chance to win. But just finding some good form as well, Richie Ramsey. He was 22nd at the Italian Open. Then he struggled at the BMW International, which you wouldn't necessarily expect to play well at. Did miss the cut at the Scottish, which would have been disappointing for him. But 3rd at the Czech Masters, where he was inside the top 2 going into the weekend. He was 39th at the British Masters again. Probably would have wanted to play a little bit better considering the history he has at the Belfry. But last week as well, inside the top 10 going into the weekend. Poor Saturday, which many people had, shooting a 74, and then bounced back nicely on Sunday with a 69. And it's the strokes gained approach that's really catching my eye as well. 5th, 15th, and 18th, the last 3 starts with his iron play. So he's really finding the form with the irons. We know he loves this test. And as I said, right at the top of the show, I just want these guys that I know can play this type of golf. He's done it for his whole career. It's certainly the sort of thing that brings him to his very best. He's got the 2nd in this event. He's got the 2nd at Dunhill Links. Got a 4th at Dunhill Links. He is just going to be someone that relishes the test. 6th at the Scottish Open. Multiple top, finishes at the British Masters as well. So loves playing closer to home. Will relish a real Links test, and I expect him to go well this week.
Yeah, I mean, we have, I guess, a huge dichotomy on this last selection, right? Like, because for me, you're picking Old Faithful with Ramsey, and
Yeah.
and I'm leaning into the young guy, right? If anyone saw my tweet on Monday morning, and I knew it would be long gone by the time we got into this podcast, knowing we were recording on Tuesday. So if that hits, I am going to tweet that out in advance to try to catch a number, and that was on Freddie Ketchup or Frederick Ketchup, Kjetrup, out of Florida State. So it's always interesting to me is some of these guys. I mean, he was above average as an amateur. 13th, I think, in the Wagger was where he was when he graduated from Florida State or wrapped up playing there. 34th in the data golf rankings at the time for amateurs. But going to the PGA Tour Americas, which is basically for the PGA Tour, you guys that are, I think, 15th through 25th is how it works for those guys. Won his first event, PGA Tour Americas, won his second event, and then won his third event 2 starts ago for him. So he won those first 2 events as a pro. And then I got to imagine from a mental standpoint, it's like, okay, like he's going to the Corn Ferry no matter what next year, just figure it out a little bit, bounces back now with 3 straight top 10s, including another win. He is going to have full status next year in the KFT, no reshuffle issues. He had made the US Open via qualifying, which I think is another feat for him. Wasn't as good as like a Clanton, his teammate there, but he opened at 750-1. He does not have the links pedigree or success as an amateur. Ben stateside for a majority of it. T25 in his one DP World Tour event that I found, the Himmerland, I think he played last year.
Yep.
But I'm going to make the bet if I think the books are sleeping. And the tweet also brought up who we were talking about, John Kiefer, who is the PGA Tour America's Player of the Year, Order of Merit leader. 10 starts for Kiefer, who is basically a similar amateur as Ketrup is. 9 top 5s in 10 starts for Kiefer. Kiefer is playing on the PGA Tour this week and opening at 365. He was 66-1 this week.
Yeah.
The longest we've seen him is 125. Maybe he's down to 80s in most spots now. You got 10 times that odds at open for Ketchup in links test, different element in a better field. I get it. But I'm going to take that bet for a top 5, top 10, with Ketchup for it. And just on pure talent alone, catch lightning in a bottle in your first time here on the DP World Tour as a pro.
Yeah, so we say like kind of like the better field. I guess it is when you've got Rory and Shane Lowry, etc. in it. But like the PGA Tour is just so deep. So when I see a John Kiefer and I think, right, okay, well you are far too good. 9 of his top 6s, 9 top 6s in 10 starts. So tied 19th is your worst start. You've won already. But whatever he's been doing, Ketrot's been doing as well. That's the main point, right? And the 750 was ridiculous. When it starts going down to kind of 100 and 200, then it becomes you're in the Ramsey territory of players that we like, Pepperell, etc. And I just think he'll get caught out by links golf, having not played any of it. But the talent play is ridiculous. The guy is going to go and do what? I mean, thinking about kind of, I guess, Norman and Matty Schmid and players like that in recent years of, playing well in one event and coming onto the DP World Tour. Had he have shown anything anywhere else, he would be way too short. And, to your point, he's actually already had that top 25 in Himmerland as well. So, I think he'll be interesting to track. The Corn Ferry Tour is going to suit him more. I guess when it comes to Kiefer, it's one of those ones where they go, well, this is more point and shoot golf at the Fortinet, and he can just kind of surprise. And Clanton's always going to be that weird short price. But even Clanton, right, I know he's impressed, but 22-1, we're talking about a player that was in a similar position to these, months ago. So the books are generally just really scared to take on these guys, and Ketrup was the outlier in that when he was the 700 when he opened. So I think it's really important to make note of that. And if he plays well, that'd be really exciting. And on the lines of Ketrup, I will just mention Kyle, who messages me an awful lot. His tag is Huey Mac 2449 on X. Messages me a lot. Really good supporter of the show. And he straight away sort of said to me like he was going to play Ketrup, and the other player that he mentioned was Jason Scribner, who was 400-1 when he opened. And I was really tempted by Scribner. We went back and forth. He said he was playing so great with his irons, and Data Golf hadn't updated in my end yet. So I was like, "Oh, are you sure? It's only 1 week." Then it loaded back in, and I saw it was both weeks, and it makes a ton of sense. Scribner's also had a top 10, but he went from 400 to 200 by the time the show come out, so I was a little bit less interested. But he just wanted to give him a shout out because he does message us a lot. He does point out the show and how much he enjoys it. So thanks to Kyle there. And yeah, I think that sort of caps off what should be a really fun week. I think the real tough thing, I think we both said this, Guy, at the start, like really tough event for us to bet. And it's one of those ones where it's really fun because you get a lot of these players like the Loutons and the Ramseys and the Jordans and all that kind of 80 to 1 and bigger that you just wouldn't really expect. And you haven't got to make too much of a kind of like, shall I, shan't I thought process. But it does lead you to feel a little bit scattergun and is the 18 to 1 Rory McIntyre or 6 to 1 Rory McIlroy just going to run away with it? And that's what the element of Irish Open brings. I think you've got a lot to look forward to this week with the golf course. So looking forward to it from a viewing standpoint. I think it's going to be a big week in golf if these kind of rumours are true that there's potentially talks of a merger. I know there's a lot of dialects about where they're choosing to do that, and it is strange. But yeah, should be a big week for golf. Two good events, and looking forward to the DP World Tour rolling into Wentworth next week, which would be really good as well.
Yes, 100%. You gave a shout out there. I had a shout out as well. We talk about DP World Tour being a tight-knit community. Golf Gambler, who we've mentioned many a times on this show, sent out a tweet thread this past week that he's got to take a step back for work purposes. His life is getting a little bit too hectic to be able to manage and juggle both of them. And well-respected, tipper for us, tipster, awesome human being, been fun to interact with on a lot of the guys, loves a great long shot. So wish him the best. Has taken a little break and totally understand where he's coming from in regards to the juggle that a lot of us, can't always prioritize and be able to do. So kudos to him to be able to do that.
Yeah, I sent him a GIF saying sort of like, please don't go or something like that. And he just replied saying, I'm not dead, which was great. Yeah, really great to have him on Twitter over the last few years. One of the people that really bought into the first round leader thing, which I've always been a big fan of. Less competition for me on Twitter and talking about first round leaders, so that's great. But no, we'll really be missed in that kind of circle and talking about that. So yeah, looking forward to a big week. I guess, do we want to summarize our picks here?
Yeah, yep. Let's close out our picks, and then we'll lay out game plan for Wentworth. So you can go first.
Yeah, so Ryan Fox 30 to 1, Joost Luiten 80 to 1, Eddie Pepperell 125, and Richie Ramsey 150 to 1 for me, Sky.
Perfect. Guido Migliazzi 45 to 1, Harry Hall 60, Laurie Cantor 75, Matthew Jordan 80, Joe Dean 125, and then Frederick Ketchup, if you got him at the 750s, shout out to being up early on a Monday morning. 200s now, you can have that kind of debate. That's probably the line in which I would be okay. Still getting on, but can understand passing at that number. But yeah, super excited for this week. Royal County Down, be able to watch and just tune in to hopefully some carnage out there. And then Wentworth next week, fingers crossed. I'm hoping to bug DraftKings a little bit in advance this time to post us some contests. Let's get big prizes for the premier DP World Tour show. We'll do this on Tuesday again next week, Tom, just because we'll get the pricing out. We'll get everything all aligned in advance. And we got good feedback last week when we went through that style of show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing it that way. And, we don't get the opportunity to do it all the time because, as you said, the contests are smaller and more so than anything, it's just time, right? Like, and general interest. So looking forward to doing that. It will be a really good event. I'll leave you with one thought, Sky, before we jump off. Like, with Ketterup, like if he was playing on the PGA Tour, would you just feel more confident of him this week?
I mean, at the number, I guess if it was 200 on either, I would probably take him more on the PGA Tour. I think I would. Yeah.
Like that, like, because in the head, it's like, okay, well, he's going to drop down to a lower level and, have a chance to kind of prove himself before going back to Corn Ferry in the PGA. But I just think just the style of golf, and I don't want to be down about the pick at all. I want to see the talent of him. I just kind of wish for his benefit he was actually in the Pro Tour Championship. I don't know why he wouldn't have been picked unless he just decided to play here.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, I get Kiefer getting the invitation because he's the Order of Merit leader, but why wouldn't they also given one to Ketterup too? I would have thought both would have gotten it because they did good with their sponsors exemptions this week. It's some strong guys got in there.
Yeah, and also just to finally round up as well, like I do really like that Harry Hall pick. Like, didn't give it much thought, and now you're the second person in the day to talk to me about Harry Hall, and all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll be cheering him on as a bystander here.